Hi, you're with me, Pasha Rahim, on The Nation. Today, we'll be talking to His Excellency NORTON de MURAT QUINTELLA, who is the Ambassador of Brazil to Malaysia. Now, in recent years, diplomatic relations between Malaysia and Brazil have been deepened, with both nations seeking to strengthen cooperation in various sectors. We're talking trade, education, and also environmental sustainability. Now, as Brazil positions itself as a key player in the BRICS alliance alongside Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the potential for collaboration between Brazil and Malaysia within this framework presents significant opportunities. And so this interview today will explore the current state of Malaysia-Brazil diplomacy. We'll be talking about challenges and opportunities, and also how BRICS can reshape the geopolitical and also economic landscape, especially for the global south. Welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, Pasha. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Good afternoon, everyone.
Right. So let's just talk about the diplomatic relations between Malaysia and Brazil. Now, we've had a long relationship so far. How would you characterize the current diplomatic relationship between these two countries? And, you know, it's an important year for both countries as well. Could you provide us an overview of the key areas where we have seen the most growth?
Well, it's been a terrific year for relations between Brazil and Malaysia. About 10 days ago, I wrote and published an article in the Star newspaper, which I titled The Turning Point. And the turning point is the year 2024. Because this year, we've had so far the visit by the Foreign Minister of Brazil to Malaysia less than 3 weeks ago. And that was the first visit by a Brazilian Foreign Minister to Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya since 2017.
Right.
And later today, we're having the first ever, virtually, it's going to be virtual, the first political consultations meeting between Brazil and Malaysia. Prime Minister Dato Seri Anwar Ibrahim is going to Brazil in November at the invitation of President Lula of Brazil. And when my foreign minister came 2-3 weeks ago, he gave Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim a letter from President Lula inviting the Prime Minister to come to Brazil to attend the G20 summit.
Right. Fantastic. So trade and investment, of course, have been central to diplomatic relations between our countries. What specific industries or sectors do you see as having the most untapped potential for future growth in Malaysia-Brazil relations? Now, we know a lot of Brazilians here, they work in the oil and gas sector, and, you know, we're talking about industrial things. Perhaps, what is the path that we're looking at?
Well, the short answer would be just about all fields for the following reason. Trade between Brazil and Malaysia is very important. Malaysia has become a more important trade partner for Brazil than most South American countries and European countries. We sell more to Malaysia nowadays than we sell to most of our South American neighbors, with the exception of Argentina and Chile. We sell more to Malaysia than we sell to Italy, to Portugal, to France. And those are very, very traditional and historic trade partners and political partners of Brazil. However, although trade is incredibly important between the two countries, there's still an imbalance because there's a huge Brazilian surplus in its trade relations with Malaysia, and I know that's something that Malaysia would like to revert. Malaysia would like the trade to be more equitable, not with such a huge surplus for Brazil. And at the same time, there is a difference in the kind of products that we sell to each other, because Brazil sells to Malaysia mostly agricultural goods and halal meat, halal chicken, whereas Malaysia sells to Brazil mostly electronics and industrial components. So although there is a surplus for Brazil, there is an imbalance also in the terms of what Brazil sells and what Brazil buys. So basically there's a lot of work to be done to increase the trade, make it more equal, but equal not only in terms of numbers, but also in terms of the products that we exchange.
Right. So both Brazil and Malaysia, we have a large area of rainforests, and we both share a commitment to environmental sustainability. How are our two countries collaborating on this front, and particularly regarding renewable energy, biodiversity, and also combating deforestation?
Last year in December at COP28, Minister Nick Nazmi had a meeting with his Brazilian counterpart, who is a very well-known internationally an important figure in the environmental movement, Minister Marina Silva. And that was a meeting which I pushed very strong to happen, because I was sure that they would get along well. And I think Minister Nick Nazmi is a brilliant minister, just as Marina Silva is, and they got along quite well. And since then, lots has happened. Last year I think in August, maybe, the Amazonian countries at a summit meeting in the Amazon region in Brazil, in Belém do Pará, which, by the way, is the same city where Brazil will host next year, COP30. So the Amazonian leaders met in Belém do Pará, and they issue a declaration on tropical forests. And Malaysia was the first country which was not an original signatory of that document to join the document in November last year. And that, in my opinion, was a very important signal that Malaysia sent to Brazil, that it wanted the two countries to work together. As you mentioned, Brazil and Malaysia are both tropical countries with an important forest coverage. Both are mega-diverse countries. They are amongst the 17 mega-diverse countries in the world. And I always found it very strange when I arrived here 4 years ago that there wasn't more of a dialogue between Malaysia and Brazil on issues such as the environment and climate change. And since November, December last year, that has changed.
Right. So the MIHAS 2024 is ongoing. It was just recently launched yesterday, and Brazil has a pavilion ongoing at MIHAS, showcasing its diverse trade and also cultural offerings. Now, how important are events like MIHAS in promoting Brazil's economic and also cultural engagement with Malaysia? And, what are some of the key takeaways for Brazil's participation this year?
Brazil values MIHAS very much. Brazilian exporters of halal products value MIHAS very much, because Malaysia has stronger requirements for halal certification than most Islamic countries. The requirements that Malaysia has are more stringent than even the ones that the Gulf countries have. So when you are able to export to Malaysia, it's a seal of quality that you receive to export to all Islamic countries. So Brazilian exporters value that very much, and they all want to export to Malaysia. So during COVID, when the first MIHAS happened after COVID, I think it was in 22, it was still we did participate in the past, but then during COVID, MIHAS did not happen. And in 2022, soon after COVID, it was too early for us to come back. But since last year, we've been participating, and actually our pavilion this year is bigger than our pavilion last year. And Brazil, to my knowledge, is the only country that organizes, we started doing this last year, on the opening day of MIHAS, we have an event called Brazil Networking Day. And
which I missed yesterday.
You missed yesterday. You were invited and you didn't attend. You should have. It was, we had about 140, 150 people participating. And the Deputy Minister of Agriculture and Food Security that took Arthur Kurup gave a brilliant speech. He was our guest of honor, and he gave a brilliant speech. And I have to tell you that this has been also a very good year for discussions between Brazil and Malaysia on the agricultural field, because about a month ago, the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security of Malaysia Datuk Seri Mohamed Sabu went to Brazil, and he had a meeting with his Brazilian counterpart, and several decisions were taken during that meeting in Brasilia, whose aim is that in the long run, hopefully the cooperation between Brazil and Malaysia will help the price of important foodstuffs in the Malaysian diet go down in terms of price.
Right. So talking about the Malaysia-Brazil cooperation, right? Brazil has become one of the most important economies in South America, and Malaysia is a key player in Southeast Asia. What do you think are the biggest challenges for both countries, when facing expanding economic collaboration, especially in terms of, we're talking about market access and also investment policies? How's this looking like for the two countries?
Very good. I'll just, I'm going to sound mean because I want to be precise.
Okay.
Brazil is actually the biggest economy in Latin America, not only South America, but in Latin America.
Right.
In fact, we are at the moment the 8th largest economy in the world. We are trying to promote investments between Brazil and Malaysia. As a matter of fact, one of the agreements that we've started discussing, Brazil and Malaysia, is an investment, bilateral investment agreement. But it's still, the discussions are still in their early stages. We don't know when that will be ready, because there is a lot of opportunity for mutual investment. Let me tell you that Malaysian firms in the oil and gas sector, and also in the area of renewable energies, are already huge investors in Brazil. Not only Petronas, but also Sapura and Inson. They are very important investors in the energy sector in Brazil. For that reason, Malaysia is now one of the main providers of energy in Brazil. At the same time, the biggest Latin American investment in Malaysia is by a Brazilian firm. I believe the biggest foreign investment in Peru is by a Brazilian firm. So there is a lot of significant bilateral investments, but maybe compared to other countries, it's not as dynamic yet as it could be.
Right. Let's talk about agriculture, right? So given Brazil's importance in the sector and also Malaysia's leadership in palm oil production, are there opportunities for both countries to collaborate in the agro-industry sector and also perhaps in technology transfer? We're talking maybe innovation or, things like sustainable practices.
Very much. One of the things that Minister Mohamed Sabu discussed in Brazil with his Brazilian counterpart a month ago was a possible agreement between Embrapa, which is the agricultural research entity of the Brazilian government, and MARDI in Malaysia, in order to transfer technology, for example, in the cultivation of corn. That's why I mentioned that discussions had the aim of lowering the price of foodstuff in Malaysia, because if you become more proficient in growing corn, in the long term, that means the price of chicken will come down.
Right.
Eggs and chicken. So yes, discussions are ongoing on how we can cooperate in the agricultural field and transfer technology to Malaysia. Embrapa, this Brazilian entity I mentioned, which is discussing now with MARDI and the Malaysian Ministry of Agriculture, is the jewel in the crown of Brazilian agencies. It is Embrapa that has helped Brazil become so proficient in the agricultural sector.
Right. Just a little bit about the EU imposing very stringent standards on vegetable oils, such as palm oils, imported into Europe, right? What's Brazil's stand on the new rules known as the EUDR that's being imposed by the EU? And do you think these non-tariff barriers are designed to protect the EU's own vegetable oil production and their oil markets, and they're seeing palm oil as a competitor in the market?
I prefer not to talk about palm oil and Malaysia's dialogue with Europe, with European Union in that respect. What I can tell you is that last year I believe 17, 18 tropical countries sent a common letter to the European authorities, and Brazil and Malaysia were two of those 18 countries. And basically, Malaysia's complaint, I believe, are the same as the Brazilian one. Brazil is a country, like Malaysia, that is going to be affected by that European Union regulation, deforestation regulation. And what Brazil, and recently the Foreign Minister of Brazil and the Agriculture Minister of Brazil sent together a letter to European authorities in Brussels, mentioning the following, which I believe is the same concern that Malaysia has, that European regulation does not take into account protection that the tropical countries themselves have in place to protect their forests, and that it is an imposition that violates concerns about sovereignty of tropical countries. And we have requested, Brazil has requested European authorities in Brussels to delay the application of that regulation, which should start at the end of this year, so that its effect can be better analyzed. And we do believe that it has important trade consequences, which will affect mostly, at least in the case of Brazil, but I believe also in the case of Malaysia, smaller producers.
Right. Right. So, Your Excellency, you arrived here in Malaysia just before the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's definitely disrupted global supply and also economies worldwide. How have Malaysia and Brazil, in particular, worked together during the pandemic recovery phase? Were there specific recovery strategies that both countries are employing that you find complementary to each other?
Let me tell you that COVID, tragic as it was, and I myself lost my aunt and godmother to COVID in Brazil before the vaccine was available. The Brazilian exports of foodstuffs to Malaysia was not disrupted, were not disrupted. As a matter of fact, as soon as the first MCO started in March 2020, I sent a letter as the Brazilian ambassador to then MITI Minister Asminali, giving guarantees that there would be no disruption, that Malaysia could rest assured that its food security would not be affected as far as Brazil was concerned because of COVID. And that was the case. Our exports of foodstuffs to Malaysia were never disrupted because of COVID.
Right. Let's move on, Your Excellency. We'd like to talk about BRICS. So BRICS has become a significant multilateral group influencing global economic governance. How does Brazil view Malaysia's potential role or engagement with BRICS in the future, especially given our strategic location within the Southeast Asian region?
I like the way you put the question, because it's a very clever way of putting the question when you end about the geographical position. Let me tell you a little bit about BRICS. First of all, Brazil welcomes very much Malaysia's candidacy to become a member of BRICS. And when the Prime Minister of Malaysia made that announcement in June this year, we received it quite naturally. And personally, I believe that Malaysia fulfills all requirements to be a member of BRICS. Personally, I don't believe that the expansion of BRICS will happen in the near future, for the following reason: because already in January this year we doubled the membership of BRICS.
Right.
So we are still trying to see how this expansion of BRICS that happened at the beginning of this year will affect BRICS, how BRICS will evolve after that expansion. I know that there have been rumors that soon, maybe even this year, at the BRICS summit this year, that a new category will be created of called partners of BRICS. And that makes sense, because ASEAN, for example, has a category called partners, dialogue partners of ASEAN. So if the rumors are true, and that category is created, maybe that would be a first step for willing countries to join BRICS, to start their dialogue with BRICS and start participating in some BRICS projects. I have been noticing that some Western observers in Malaysia have expressed concern about the fact that Malaysia wants to join BRICS, and that's why I said that the way you formulated the question was very well done, because the only explanation I can see for that concern of some Western observers is the geographical position of Malaysia on the map.
Right.
Because BRICS by no means can be seen as an anti-Western grouping, a group that has Brazil, South Africa, India, now Egypt, and several other countries, certainly cannot be seen as anti-Western. So I can't imagine that when Egypt decided to join BRICS, there was a huge concern amongst the diplomatic community in Cairo that Egypt wanted to join BRICS. I have heard that there is some concern here, and the only explanation I find for that is the geographical position of Malaysia. But those concerns are misplaced in the sense that when the Prime Minister of Malaysia declares that he would like Malaysia to join BRICS, he's not making a political statement, he's making
it's a strategic sort of economic
exactly,
move,
it's an economic decision.
Speaking on that note, right, China's growing influence within BRICS has, raised some questions definitely about the balance of power within the group. And we're talking very big powers within BRICS. How does Brazil navigate its relationship with China? And also, do you think Malaysia could benefit from engaging with BRICS in a way that balances the regional interests?
Very much. Brazil does not see BRICS as a political group. Countries may benefit politically from being members of BRICS. That happens, and that's perfectly all right in my opinion. But what Brazil as a country sees mostly in BRICS is the economic and trade advantages of being in BRICS. And I have been asked by some Western observers here, but do you need to be in BRICS in order to trade with the other BRICS members? No, you don't. China is already our biggest trade partner, and it would be our biggest trade partner even if one of them, China or Brazil, were not a member of BRICS. But obviously, when countries are together in the same group, that facilitates dialogue and that promotes more opportunities for dialogue, for meetings, for exchange of opinions. So although you don't need to be a BRICS member in order to trade with the other BRICS countries and have good economic relations with those countries, it helps.
Right. So speaking about BRICS and, it's expanding its influence in global economic policies, what key areas or reforms do you foresee as essential for BRICS to focus on in the coming years, to generally better serve the global South? And also, how could you see Brazil and Malaysia contributing to that?
I believe that several BRICS countries, and I think that Malaysia, although not yet a member of BRICS, also has been doing this. Several countries from the global South, including BRICS countries and including Malaysia, have expressed over the last few years their concerns about the inequality that you see on the international arena, how difficult it is for the global South countries to make their opinions be heard and to express their opinions. And I believe that President Lula and Prime Minister Dato Seri Anwar Ibrahim have been two very strong voices from the global South expressing those concerns, that the world should be a more equal place, that the global South concerns should be heard more and should be taken into account. And I believe that BRICS helps in that. I think that being a BRICS member makes you be able to convey your voice a little better.
Right. Your Excellency, I'm afraid that's all the time that we have for today. That was a wonderful conversation that we've had with His Excellency Ari Norton de Moura Quintella, who is the Ambassador of Brazil to Malaysia. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to talk about Carnival. Perhaps in the next show, Your Excellency, you must come back.
I'll do that.
All right, as it is, we've run out of time on The Nation today. You have been with me, Pasha Rahim, and let's hope that this long-standing friendship between Brazil and Malaysia will enhance further economic ties and also, collaboration between the two countries. Thanks for watching The Nation. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.